Do you see feelings as stupid rules?
Yeah, f your feelings. The compassion thing is, I care, but you have to care in a way that doesn't show your emotion.
And we couldn't move forward as a society if guys like you, business owners, were completely collapsing into feelings. You guys are designed not to do that because society would fall apart if you guys did.
For example, you have an employee, right? And you give them a job and you give them the resources, you give them the time, and they go f around.
And I had a mentor tell me 15 years ago, slow to hire, quick to fire. And the second you have the feeling, get on it.
Okay, so feelings are sometimes useful. What change would you like people to pull from this interview? I know how much all of you enjoy hearing from avoidant men. So from the last conversation with one avoidant man, I have now brought two. Brian Goldstein is here with us today to talk about attachment and feelings in business. Is there even a role for feelings in business? Or do you need to keep it completely out and divorce yourself from those feelings so that you can care for the people that matter most and care for yourself? We're going to have that conversation here today. It's going to take us some wild places. You may or may not agree. I'd love to hear from you in the comments at the end. But today, we're jumping in. Join us for this conversation.
Do you believe in avoidant attachment being a core skill for a CEO?
Yes.
Why?
The wheels on the bus aren't going to go around if you don't have it.
I feel like you actually have to be able to press on people and make them uncomfortable and be comfortable with them being uncomfortable so everybody could do what they need to. That's not quite the skills you teach for business people, Adam. What do you typically teach people who are executives trying to build teams?
Well, so, there's two different pieces here, right? If you're avoidant, you have that hardcore survival mentality that's going to drive you to be successful, to acquire resources, to do all of those things that so many people misunderstand as greed or ambition or whatever. But it's a self-defense tactic of I will succeed so that I can reach this level. And it's never really enough. It's not a bad thing. It drives the rest of society. Men who have that trait, sometimes women who have that trait, they pull along the rest of society so that everyone benefits from it. There's a lot of research that indicates that avoidant people are enormously helpful for the rest of their group. So you have to have that. It's not about removing that or stripping that away. You can't because it kills the person. But what you need to do is give them another component so that they can learn to relate to people, sometimes in a gentler way than they usually will, so they don't maybe bruise their team, bruise their business partner, bruise their partner at home, so they can have that softer approach when necessary. That's the vital piece that a lot of those executives are missing.
That's where you come in.
That's where I come in, right? But that's what somebody needs to have so that they can maintain relationships. You can climb the mountain by yourself. Staying there and building that palace or building that thing on top of the mountain, that requires your team, and you can't do that if you're bruising them all the time.
You've built a few teams. What has that been like? What's the biggest lessons you've learned?
A few teams, yeah.
My last team was 346.
Nice.
Across 33 states.
How many of those names did you know?
40 on the high side. Interacted daily with 3.
What was that relationship like with those 3 people managing 346, 345?
Those 3 people, even though I'm out of that industry, I still talk to them fairly regularly. They're like part of the family. And we've always had that love-hate relationship with each other. Like, I'm still the boss at the end of the day, but I still value your opinion. And we would intentionally butt heads to get to an answer that made sense. Take a piece of theirs, piece of mine, let's merge it together. Okay, now we have this. And, I still get random texts from one of them. He's 88, 89 now.
Ooh.
He's up there and he's still like, how's the kids? How's the family? Blah, blah, blah. And he went through a divorce himself and he's just like, it happens. Keep your head up, raise your kids the best you can and keep going.
This is a story we hear all the time from executives and from just people who are in business. They have this very tight, close group of friends, and they often run businesses like that. Like Adam is a close friend of mine. Kimmy, our producer, is a good friend too, even though we work remotely. And that often replaces relationships, other types of relationships outside of work, be it friendships, be it family, but also being romantic relationships. Is that what you've seen?
Oh, yeah.
Why? Why is it better?
First of all, why did you say it like that? Why is it such an impactful question?
Because there's no judgment. I can say whatever I want. If you're my business partner, we know where the bodies are buried. And there's no judgment because we have the same goal. Get past the 100-yard line every day. With your partner at home, it's, yeah, you want to get past the 100-yard line, but I got to do a shimmy shake across the table 100 times before we get there. And it's just, I don't know if it's a man thing or what, but we also understand like there's just certain that has to get done and the excuses aren't going to be here on the table. Like a business partner texted me on the way here and he's like, oh, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, are you a fucking vagina or are you a dude? You want me to drop off the bottle of Vaseline so you can continue to get fucking that? And it was talking about his personal life and his work life. And I'm like, pick a direction. And I was like, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And you want to dance around on your partner and do all these other things, and business is going to go the wrong way. And I find doing business with certain people, if they, don't hold true in their personal life, they're not going to hold true in business.
Something cool that you just said in there that I want to pull out a little bit, something implicit in there is feelings, the role of feelings. Everything that you've just said, right? Our audience at home might be listening to this like, oh, he's disregarding feelings. He doesn't care about hurting people's feelings. Do you think that there is a role for feelings in a business relationship? And if so, what is that role?
Your feelings.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's Andrey has that tattooed across his chest, actually.
It's business, and I think that's why I've gotten ahead so well in business. I have no filter. I will say the most off-the-wall shit. Sticks, it sticks. I remember when I was 250 pounds walking into meetings, shorts, t-shirt, and a mohawk. In Mr. T style shaved.
What industry was this in?
Healthcare.
Nice.
And I did not give a fuck. And I was like,
did it work?
Built a very large company.
Okay.
And people came to realize like Brian's not going to follow a dress code. And I would just.
What do you like about that kind of perspective? Or
I do. If I was dressed like Adam right now, I don't think I'd be as comfortable. I know I won't be as comfortable. I feel constricted. Even putting on pants, like I brought pants for later for dinner, but I can't wear pants during the day. It's just weird.
Everybody note he's not wearing any pants.
Yeah, fucking bottomless, just a shirt. And so it's the things that I've learned that make me feel most comfortable. I don't need to tout who I am, what I've accomplished. Like, hey, you have a problem in business or whatever it might be that people call me in to help with now. And it's like, you already know my accolades long before I walked in the building. We're not here to discuss that. We're here to discuss how do we get past the 100-yard line.
And people need that. This is actually why I like this idea of, avoidant attachment. And maybe you guys need to have a conversation about that separately, maybe not. But like this type of attitude, when it gets to the stage where feelings have gotten you into shit, frankly, it's gotten to you in your business and your relationships and even your personal life. There's men that just sometimes need to get that very clear-cut answer of like, no, this is all retarded. This is dumb. We're going to do this. What is the problem you're trying to solve, A or B? And if you can't decide, then, what are we doing here, right? And that type of relationship actually snaps a lot of people into something that is productive because it gets them out of that loop that they tend to live in. I did a lot of business back in the day too. So I ran an agency. I did a lot of corporate work. I did consulting. I did all sorts of stuff. And I can tell you that the majority of issues we saw came from people being emotional where they shouldn't be. Business is like playing chess, right? I was playing chess with my daughter yesterday, and then, she'd lose a piece and she'd freak out, or she'd try to like negotiate pieces back and forth, and kids do that. And people do that in business all the fucking time.
Can't do that.
All they do is they think, what can I do? It's like, no, there's rules. And these rules are not set by us. I'm sorry, I can't change them. The world works this way.
There's people I've coached in business, and I'm like, dude, if you don't follow something really close to this plan, it's going to implode, and it's going to implode horribly. And they're like, how do you know? I'm like, because I didn't listen before, and I myself really good. They're like, what do you mean? I was like, I've taken multi-million-dollar losses, but that's how you get to the next level. And I try and give people a roadmap. It's, like teaching your kid, don't do that, or the consequence is this. No, it's not. And sure as shit every time. They do it anyways. I'm looking at my daughter. I'm like, don't pull on that. You're going to break it. Daddy, I broke it. How do I fix it? Yeah, I broke it. I can't fix it. There's certain things I can fix. That's not one of them.
And it's a hard lesson to learn, right? It's the lesson you're supposed to learn as a kid, but learning as an adult in a position of power and influence with hundreds of people depending on you, that's a lot more difficult. That's actually why sometimes even having that perspective coming in, saying, sorry, your feelings. I don't care how you feel about me, about my mohawk and my t-shirt and my shorts. I'm hot. That's what it is. And it is what it is, right? So let's start the conversation with not following rules. And sometimes the best relationships are one where you don't have to follow stupid rules.
And that's, looking back on previous personal relationships and that now it's like, why didn't I kind of follow the business mindset of why is there's certain rules in a relationship, but outside of that, why aren't you your most authentic self all the time? And why are you dialing backwards?
Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Do you see feelings as stupid rules?
In context. There's time for feelings for sure, but there's times for feelings and there's times for not feelings, for getting things done.
But what are feelings to you? I'm curious.
In what context?
Let's say you have a business partner.
Okay.
And they have an emotion. They come to your office, knock on the door and say, hello, I am having an emotion. What do?
What emotion? Just be specific, man. What are you talking about?
So it's context. Okay. So let's say they come in and they knock on the door and say, hey, you know what? I want to talk to you about something that happened in that last meeting. It felt like you were disrespectful to me in front of the staff. And I've kind of got this feeling that's bothering the crap out of me right now. Like I want to punch you in the mouth. This is happening. What are we going to do?
And then you just, flip a coin, see who punches who in the mouth first.
Okay.
And it's fair.
I like his style.
See, you just settled it that way.
Okay. But let's talk about this. I think that feelings, it's not something we have to collapse into. I think if you collapse into your feelings or other people's feelings, you're failing.
No, but somebody who walks in like that has already collapsed into his feelings, right? Because they're starting with a problem. They're offering no solutions.
Okay. So do you break up the company and get
gross.
out? Do you break up the company and get out?
You sit and say, what the f*** are you doing? You're distraught that I've disrespected you. And now what? Are we going to go have a fight? I'm fine with that. Maybe I f***ed up. Maybe I did something. Maybe I was at my worst. Maybe I wasn't being fair. Tell me.
Okay, let's assume that you want to retain this relationship then.
That is how I will retain that relationship.
That is how you retain that relationship.
That's 100% how I will retain that
I'm
relationship.
on his vote.
Okay.
Thank you. See, finally.
Do feelings inform anything? Because to me, feelings are just data. If someone is having an emotional experience, it tells me something. It doesn't always mean I have to change. If they don't like how I dress, that is not useful data to me.
But we're talking about business.
Correct.
Sure.
So I understand your point and view on it.
Cool.
But we're more from the business world. Mm-hmm. Leave your feelings in that box over there.
If you come in and you say, you have disrespected me and now I am unable to operate this business until you apologize, it means you're a liability. It means I now have to tiptoe about your bullshit.
I didn't say that. I didn't even say that in mind. That's what you just heard, is that
Correct.
He's walking in refusing to ever do business with you until you manage his feelings.
Well, he has offered no solution.
But that's curious to me, because now that's an arbitrary rule that you feel he has created, when in fact all he did was walk in and say, I had this feeling.
And what is the point?
So that's a question.
Let me
So
put
what
it
is
to
the
you this
point?
way, okay? Let's say that I get paid $1,000 an hour, right? Let's just say an arbitrary number. You've just walked in and you have cash running out the door for every minute you take of my time, right? Because I could be using that time to help you build their dreams, to be taking care of the people who are working, freaking 2, 3, 4 steps down in management, right? You could be building a dream, building a company. So when you show up during company time and you start wasting that time with feelings, you're actually being belligerent.
So
That's
you
the
at no
issue.
point would stop and say, did I disrespect them in that meeting?
No chance. No chance.
Not only start like that.
Interesting.
I've made grown men cry.
Sure. Sure.
We got work to do.
Sure.
Like one of my business partners, I've made cry multiple times. I'm like, don't do this. It's going to bite you in that. Fucking did it. And then did other things. I'm just like, the other day he came to me. He's like, I'm sorry. He's like, why didn't you force me to make the decision? I was like, we walked in with a rule that you have final say. I will give you my input. But if the house of cards falls down because you didn't want to listen.
Let me put it this way. Imagine if you were Imagine if you were, I don't know, in a fighting rink, like 4 guys on team 1, 4 guys on team 2. They're supposed to come together and they're supposed to just battle for the crown. Be football, maybe like a martial arts scene, be like whatever you want. And then you guys go in as a team and you do that. And then one guy shows up and he goes, "Well, we lost and I feel like you disrespected me." We call that in martial arts. Means your skill were not good enough. You've lost control of your emotions. You've been a liability for yourself. You are a liability for us. Bobby over there lost a tooth because of you, because you decided to bitch out in the middle of a conversation. Or in the middle of a fight, in the middle of a confrontation, and you got caught up in your feelings. That is why we control them, because you never know when this shit is going to hit the fan, especially in business. Any day could be your last day. It could be a lawsuit. Okay, it could be a banking crash. Your best guy can quit. Your contractor can get hit by a car. Anything can happen. And that's why you always have to be on your toes.
You could even spiral it to law enforcement and military. Your partner comes with feelings that day. You trust them to watch your back?
If they're bringing information to me and saying, hey, this is something that's happening, then to preserve the long-term health of the relationship, I would say, okay, tell me more about that. Tell me what's going on here. And then walk them through and build a more resilient relationship.
You have a raid that's going to hit in 30 minutes that you got to go do.
Now, if the person's that wildly dysregulated and they're collapsing into their feelings, whole different conversation. That's an entirely different conversation. If they walk in and say, this is something that's happening in our relationship.
But their head's over there and we're here.
But this is what's fascinating. All I said was the person walks in and says, hey, this happened in a business meeting.
Yeah.
You guys are now taking it to, we are about to fight to the death in a raid that's immediately happening, and you are forcing me at gunpoint to talk.
But how's that any different than business? It's 2 against 1, you're screwed, right?
That's totally fine, and that's fine. I'm happy to have this conversation. You guys are escalating it to such an overwhelming volume, and I'm wondering where that's coming from in particular, because it costs you very little to stop in that moment and say, okay, talk to me about this. What made you feel that way?
Yeah.
Even if you navigate through that conversation with that person, use it as important data. Like, okay, so if this happens, it disrupts my cycle. Okay, so if I say this to you, I now have to spend an hour dealing with this. Cool. How can I navigate this differently and speak to you differently?
Yeah, so you're basically conditioning him towards weakness. You're conditioning him to be a little bitch in the middle of a meeting. The next time is going to come back twice as bad. Because that is positive reinforcement. He knows the next time he crumbles into a whiny
how
piece
do
of
you
shit.
how do you maintain long-term relationships?
You got to compound that. Don't forget the $1,000 an hour.
$1,000 an hour. So it's true. There's $1,000.
Now we had 3 hours on the same topic.
Okay, so is there a way to run a business long-term and maintain those good relationships if every time somebody walks in and says, hey, this is an experience I'm having, you immediately shut them down that hard?
Yeah. So basically what you have to do is you have to have a system set in place for how you communicate. So you could absolutely have this conversation, but the guy is supposed to roll and say, hey, man, so I want to talk to you after hours. Let's go to a bar, let's go outside. And I'm going to say that what happened there was not productive, right? You actually took me down in front of those guys. You actually damaged their company. You damaged my impression. I'm not cool with that. This is what I need to do afterwards. So before you talk about feelings, it's fine, but it cannot be the only thing, and you must master them first, right? You master them and come up with a solution and say, look, if you do this again, I'm going to knock your teeth out in that meeting. If you do that again, I'm going to walk out. Mm-hmm. If you do that again, I'm not signing this contract. There always has to be some form of confrontation. So every confrontation, every fight has to have a consequence. Otherwise, you're breeding worse behavior. Do you agree?
Yeah, and I have a follow-up question.
Please.
Do you feel in business, high level, not mom and pop business, but a decent sized business, that when you walk into the door for the day, you've toggled the switch where there is no emotion, no feelings, and you're strictly on the side of logical brain, this to this to this to this, and when you leave to go home to your family, you turn that other switch back on?
I'll give you this example. If you take the way that every elite and every historically successful nation has operated. Let's take the British Navy, for example. They have a strict code of etiquette. They have a strict code of communication. They cannot raise their voice. They have to dress to the T. They have to look perfect. There's no emotion on a ship. And they're like that for months, if not years, and that is the epitome for them because that means survival, right? What they do after they're off and they're internal in their quarters, their connection, with God, their connection with their spouse, their connection with their friends is different. But exactly that, you're supposed to walk in, you're supposed to turn off that emotion.
So they've toggled the switch.
They toggle the switch, and what they do is that data, it's not wasted, but it's collected for later, right? You can process that emotion after the fact, but you shouldn't be processing in the middle of something else. You cannot afford to be that distracted. That's what they teach. That's why it works. That's why they've conquered so many parts of the world. That's why they've built huge corporations and huge entities from which we still are descendants. Right? That is what they teach the elites in business school and in boarding school. They teach you that. In the highest level boarding schools, there is still physical punishment to this day to show you the immediate consequence of your action, because they know if they don't hit you when you're young, you're going to make that mistake. You're going to cost somebody their life, right? That's not a price you want to pay. So
This goes against everything you teach.
And I like to challenge on that.
And to that, I am 100% aware. 100%.
And I'll follow that up with another question of, well, then how does someone work with you to balance both?
And that's where I'm going.
Because our opinion is, okay, in business, Adam, you're over there. But the second we walk out of the building or it's after hours and we're associating with that employee that had a rough time, whatever it might be, your business partner, okay, we're after hours, the $1,000 an hour is off the clock. We can now have a conversation.
At the beginning of this conversation, the thing that I said was that avoidant guys, sorry, buddy, but I mean, both of you, from what you guys are saying here, I mean, 100%, avoidant men drive civilization forward because they have that capacity to fully dissociate from emotions like that in a way that absolutely troubles and disturbs the rest of us. But the rest of society benefits as a result, no matter how uncomfortable that is. So I can sit here and tell you guys like, oof. But at the same time, you're employing 346 people and feeding their families and caring for them, driving society forward. You're building your companies and everything that you've done and all the families that you're feeding as well. So I can sit here and tell you, feelings are pretty useful.
Sure.
There's a balancing point. So absolutely, when you go home, bringing that mentality home, and that's the capacity that most avoidant men don't have. They haven't built that yet. The peace mode, the off switch, like you talked about the off switch, that's beautiful. You have kids. You're doing that. You have to have that off switch, and that's the component that most executives and CEOs are missing is that off switch. They go home and they don't know how to turn it off. They don't know how to switch into a more complete total mode to be with their family, to immerse, to get the oxytocin, the serotonin, and everything that they need at home. So they end up destroying their family at home. They're amazing in business. They drive society, but their family suffers as a result, and they suffer as a result. That's what I've seen.
Ask this, Brian. What is the role of compassion in business?
I care about my customer.
How about your employees?
Care about them too.
Why?
Without them, the wheels don't go around.
Can't they be replaceable?
Yeah, but who the hell wants to start over and train somebody?
What if you get better the next time around?
Yeah. But, and I guess compassion goes multiple ways. Like I used to have weekly massages for the staff. They'd get an extra 30-minute break just to reset.
What did that do?
Honestly, it caused a revolt because then people were bitching, I want this masseuse, not this masseuse. And I'm like, you know what?
And that's why we can't have nice things.
Fuck you guys. It's over.
Now there's that moment of I catered to your feelings and you ruined everything. So now you're not allowed. Now I'm taking your feelings away, sir. That's what that is.
And then I used to buy lunch for the whole staff every Friday. Then fucking this one would say, I don't want to order from there. I'm not ordering from 3 restaurants. Take it or leave it. You don't like it? Bring your lunch. And after doing this for a year, I'm like, we're done. I'll bring in pizza once a year.
Only cheese.
Only cheese, maybe pepperoni. If my daughter's there, she'll take all the cheese off. But, like even the holiday time, funny part is when I employed all those people for my birthday, I would take out my entire staff on my birthday. Yeah, whoever I was dating or whatever was there, but on my birthday, I'm giving back to my employees. Christmas time, I'd give them a bonus, but I'd also take them to a very nice steakhouse and say, you can bring a +1. And most of them would not be able to afford a $150 steak dinner. And you're doing this for 40, 50 people at a time. They appreciated those little things, but it was still like, oh, we were kind of on the clock. I'm like, fucking which one is it, dude? And so the compassion thing is I care, but you have to care in a way that doesn't show your emotion.
Let me put it to you this way. So if you can control your emotions and not let them be manipulated against you, right?
Mandatory, yeah.
If you can control your emotions, you actually have the luxury of offering compassion because, sometimes things happen. Maybe you had an employee once who showed up and, maybe you see that he or she's distraught or something happened and you call them in your office and you say, hey, what happened? They go, oh, maybe this happened. Maybe I had a death in the family. I had an accident. I had this. You say, okay, look, go home. Here's a taxi. Here's, $200. Go have some lunch. Let me know what happens. You go, oh, I got this medical bill. I don't know how to pay that. I have this, I have that. I'm afraid this is going to get you. Just go, you cover the medical bill. That's compassion. And that is not compassion that's based on feelings in the sense of you sit there and you gush with them when you cry with them. You respect their privacy. You respect that you are their boss. You're not their friend. You're not their relative. You're not their therapist. And you simply remove the source of pain for them. And having that clarity of mind and having the little bit of distance between yourself and your employees allows you to do that. In a similar way, if you look at any type of monarchy, right, the monarch is unapproachable. And people often believe it's so that, they can be as snobby and annoying as possible. But it is there so that you understand the significance of that influence and power and so that they can actually grant these very significant mercies as they do or favors or whatever, something that can truly manifest that compassion. So as you go up in business levels, as you go up in your company, you actually have a much higher responsibility without the luxury of feelings, but with a greater luxury of understanding of humans and then taking care of them. It has a different meaning. It is not about giving them weekly massages, right? It's maybe giving them the ability to have that type of support when nobody else will help them because you've been preserving those resources. That make sense, Adam?
It does. Let me ask you this question. Do you want your employees to be securely attached to you as their boss? What's your perspective?
What does secure attachment and employment even look like?
Secure attachment and employment. So it's not being able to take you for granted because that's not what secure attachment is. It's not I'm just going to use you and have fun at your expense. That is the opposite of secure attachment. Secure attachment means I trust your principles. I trust your goals. I trust that you will discipline me when necessary, but not more than necessary. I trust you not to be a complete pathetic doormat to everybody because then I can't trust you and I'm not safe. But I also trust you not to be a tyrant in this direction. I trust you to be in this narrow channel, that to be the real leader that we need and to be consistent with me so that I know you will deal with me with justice according to the law that you have written down. That would be the upward looking secure attachment, almost from a child to a parent figure, if you want to think of it that way.
Out of 356 employees, how many could go up to you and even say they have had more than, say, a half an hour conversation with you?
6.
So what happened and how do you build secure attachment with 349 or 350 people you've never met?
I'm not asking him to build a connection personally with 350 people, but of those 6, how many of them do you think were more securely attached to you, where they trusted you to be consistent, just, and
Every
fair?
single one would trust me with their life. No questions
There we
asked.
go.
And it was always the clear understanding, look, you want to call me on off hours to shoot the shit? Let's shoot the shit. But if it's work related and you truly can't solve the problem, then you call me. But I'm paying you for X. Figure it the out. Because if I'm going to go downstairs and figure it out for you, why the hell am I keeping you?
And that is also secure attachment. That's the boundary of a relationship. That's the rule. It cannot mean that you collapse into them at a moment's notice and that they own you. Your kid can't come to you and absolutely demand that you cater to them 100% and you let everything else burn over here for their feelings. That's also not a secure connection. So
Tell a
absolutely.
toddler that.
Yeah, I have. I got 5 kids. There's times where you have to say, pause. Right now, I'm going to teach you self-discipline and I will come back for you. I need this time right here, and you let them breathe and you teach them that. You teach them how to really regulate self in that moment. There's times where they can't, and it's an emergency, and this is more important, but that's how you teach them. And as an adult, they need to have that. I wouldn't hire someone that's not fully secure, going to be able to connect to me either. I don't hire people with personality disorders for my company. I can't, because they will take advantage of you. They will eat you if they can. But it sounds like those employees had secure attachment to you, especially because they knew those rules. They knew what your rule was. Your law was very clear. Do not do this during these times, but I will care for you at these times to this extent. Here is my law. Follow it, and I will care for you.
Yeah. One person I still talk to this day, she's like, I don't bother you before 11 still. Because I'd be at work at 8:30, but the lights are on, but no one's home. And I'm just going, like, I don't do caffeine first thing in the morning, so I'm like trying to wake up, trying to just sort through my emails, go through everything. And everybody knew, don't you dare knock on my door before 11 or call or text. And it worked that way. And they understood, like, I walk in the morning, I didn't even say hi to anyone. I literally beelined it to my office and locked myself behind 2 doors. And you'd have to actually get buzzed through 2 doors to get to me.
And I have the same rule with my own children, right? If daddy comes home from a trip or from a meeting or whatever it is, no drama until dad has peed and washed his face and like cleaned up a little. Do not hit me with drama in the first 3 seconds when I open that door. And they know that rule. So they'll come in, they'll go, Dad, I have something to tell you, but I'll wait. And I say, okay, you know what? Give me 5 minutes. Go do my thing for 5 minutes, come back. All right, buddy, sit down and talk to me about this. What's going on? Same thing. That is secure attachment. Okay. Secure attachment must have boundaries. If you have no boundaries, you are not just a poor leader. You are massively insecure and you're collapsing in other people.
So now we're talking about a small group of 6, 10 people max. That makes sense. That is not very difficult to understand how you build that secure relationship. And it will truly build itself once you get to a certain level, because talented people don't take crap. They really have a lot of options.
So I will say this, right? We look at the chimps. We look at Franz de Waal's work with the chimps and power and sex among the apes. And the research shows that most of the chimps in the troop have absolutely low cortisol levels. They're all relaxed. The chimp at the top has one of the highest cortisol levels in the entire troop. The only chimp who has equal is the absolute bottom gutter chimp that everyone else beats up on and pees on, literally pees on. He has the absolute level cortisol and everyone pays him respect. But he is also the most likely to go comfort another chimp who's legitimately hurting, who's crying, who's wounded. He is the most likely to show empathy. He's the most likely to stop a fight happening among other chimps. He's aware of what his troop is doing. Again, he doesn't collapse into those feelings because then he's too weak to lead them. But he has to have some level of compassion for his troop or he can't lead them effectively.
Yeah, so it sounds like we've made the full circle and completed the thing, saying if you're up at the top, you cannot afford those feelings because you got to go take care of everybody else.
But he has to be aware of what feelings are happening so that he can manage the troop effectively.
But you could be aware of it, but I could send my minion 2 below me to go deal with it.
Potential.
No, that's what I did.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you outsource that. Absolutely fine.
So if you have a company of, say, 350 people, 5, whatever, are your closest connections, and you have that relationship with them, the others don't see you because you're busy running the company. You're in meetings. You're
and
on
you
trips.
call those 5 your management team.
Yeah, it's your management team. So what happens with the other folks? How do you build an ideal company then with good secure attachment in the lower levels?
So we use the military as an example, and you guys said they turn off those feelings completely, but we actually have morale officers within the military who it's their job to understand the feelings of the group, and it's their job to positively influence those. So that
Not
those
in this
people can be
economy, my friend.
They're literally a morale officer. That's literally their title in there. So yes, this does exist. It doesn't have to be the general going out personally to every single private and every barracks and like, hi, I love you. That's not what the general's job is, but it is the general's job to be aware of the feelings and sentiments among the crew. So there's not a mutiny, for example. He needs to be aware of what that is because that morale is a huge driving force for military success. It always has been. So being aware of feelings, they're useful data. You cannot collapse into them. I fully 100% agree.
What feelings and what data is useful in business? I would love to hear this.
What feelings and what data is useful in business?
Yeah.
If you are about to lose your best talent at a time when you can ill afford to lose them, you need to be aware of where their feelings are at and how you can positively influence that. You need to make sure that you're not bleeding that effective talent at times when you are really relying on them for certain pieces. You can argue you should never rely on anyone for anything, but you do at least need to protect that core element of that team, some cohesion. You don't want to lose every single person in one spot and have everybody bail on you. You do need to be aware of that so you can retain some of that talent. If you want to mentor somebody, for example, and have have a successor that you're training. If you want to cultivate a healthy relationship among your board members so they're not screaming and ripping the company apart, you at least have to be aware of what feelings are happening. Again, you can't cater to it because then they will eat you alive. They'll demand 15 other things, but you do need to be aware of it for cohesion. That's my point here is the cohesion. The feelings do matter for cohesion.
I'm sure you've had employees that fit his example, and you give in to make them feel a little better. How long did that last?
Less than 6 months.
And then you were at the same boat or they were out the door?
Pretty much, always.
Where's your solution?
So a couple things. Number one, talk to me about what giving in to their feelings looks like, because that's exactly what I said you can't do. You have to be aware of, and then you can craft your own solutions that will actually resolve the issue.
They wanted more money.
Okay.
Time.
That's a great feeling, but that doesn't actually mean you have to give in to that. That's a useful metric.
I usually do it, and then it bites me in the ass 3 to 6 months later. Because that feeling that they have of whatever they think the grass is greener, no different than a personal relationship, and they'll call me 6 months after they're gone saying, I f***ed up. Too late now, kid. I've already replaced you. And I don't know, in those situations, they always try and bend me over a barrel. I'm sure you've been there.
But wait a minute. Even that feeling, though, they come to you and say, hey, I want more money. Okay, let's talk about that. They have a feeling that they can get more money elsewhere.
You're assuming that people are all good and nice.
No. Wait a minute a moment. They're coming to you with a feeling. I feel like I can get more money elsewhere. Even that's useful data, because you can look at that and say, this person's going to leave soon. They're making a foolish decision. This is stupid. I should never trust this person because of this feeling they're having. That's useful data. It doesn't mean their feeling is true, you guys.
I will validate that and say, how long are you keeping that person? Or ask.
Usually I'll start looking for a replacement the same day. So
And then within 2 weeks, they're probably.
Usually it's up to a month. So we try to scale it down, but it's hard to find talent. And then usually it'd be nice I like to cause less drama, right? So if we already know this person's out, we're going to find a nice way to offload them. It doesn't create risk. It doesn't create legal risk.
Severance, something.
We just say, look, you're not happy here. And I'm always very straight up. We run the company on certain principles. It's not for everybody. This is what we do. If you're not in line with this and it stops working for you, let me know. We'll figure it out. Your life will go on. My life will go on. We do not have to cause any issues amongst each other. And that usually is enough because they know at the baseline that the feeling component doesn't really matter that much. It's not a company priority to have feelings. It's not in the policy, right? It is what it is. And when they break, sometimes people say, hey, this is no longer the right fit for me. Just like there's people quit professional sports because they don't live that way anymore. People quit MMA, people quit art, people quit all sorts of things because it's a season of their life where they were benefiting from it and then they stop, and you have to respect those seasons. So if that happens, like you replace them and you move on, right? Your relationships at work are work relationships. They're not meant to be forever. And this is actually the core thing as a differentiator from family relationships. Family is supposed to be a forever relationship. It doesn't always work out like that. But the idea that you're traveling through this world together throughout time is there. That is not the foundation of work. And then, first of all, we must assume that's going to be the case, that most of those relationships will end over time. How many people stayed from the foundation of the 350 person company to the very end?
I had like a 90% retention.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. In many cases, they truly, they don't stay for very long, 3, 5 years, 10 years. So that's one problem. But the second layer to the problem is that you cannot assume that everybody is good. They're not your friends. They're your employees. Oftentimes they have professional issues, many types of issues, and they will easily screw you over. They'll not work, they'll skip out, they'll steal. Literally, they will steal. They'll leave work. This is not acceptable relationships, and you cannot treat people like they're always nice and good, because they're not.
Where are you getting that being aware of somebody's feelings as useful data means that you are assuming they are nice and good? Where is that coming from?
Because people will come in and they will feed you all sorts of bullshit through feelings, and they will try to use that to leverage you.
They'll do their song and dance, their pony show.
Yeah. Everybody always has a story. Nobody who's ever left, nobody I've ever fired has not had a story which they were themselves convinced by. I've never had a person show up and say, look, So I lied to you on my resume. I actually don't like doing this. I have, stolen 2 weeks of work from you, and I now have decided that you are no longer a good fit for me because you've been, watching me too closely. So I'm going to go scam somebody else now. Mm-hmm. They never say that, even though that's what's happening. They spin a feelings story to cover it up, right? And you've been through this a lot. So how do you deal with those people?
Usually I rip the Band-Aid. And I had a mentor tell me 15 years ago, slow to hire, quick to fire.
Yep.
And the second you have the fucking feeling, get on it. His opinion was...
The second you have the feeling. The second you have the feeling. Okay, so feelings are sometimes useful.
It's an intuition. It's a logical...
Okay.
No, it is an intuition. It's not about necessarily the feelings. It's a realization.
But what is a feeling? It's a sensor. It's just sensory data.
Yeah, feeling.
So it's an intuition is a sensory data. Okay,
but we're
so
using
it's useful data.
We're using a different context.
But are we? But are we? So the beginning of this conversation was, what are feelings? What do they do? What's the purpose of them? I think that we, as Americans, we have become so fixated on emotions as being something that must be catered to. You have to take care of it. You have to nurture it. You have to collapse into it. You have to powder your employees' butts and kiss them on the head and call them pretty.
Have you ever met an HR department?
Oh yes, but my point here is that it's none of those things. We have been lied to about what feelings are and the role that they have and what usefulness they have. I think they are very useful things. But they are just purely, it's a gauge on a dashboard. It is, this person is telling me something untrue. I need to find a replacement. It is, this person maybe actually feels offended. Maybe actually I should look at it and see if I was disrespectful. No, I wasn't. That's a lie. That's fine. But maybe you were. Maybe you pause for a moment and just reflect on that. And maybe you need to be aware of your stress level. Stress is a feeling. It's just sensory data that comes in. That's what I'm saying is be aware of where you're at and be aware of how that's useful. At no time should you collapse into anybody's feelings and say, okay, I'm going to take care of that for you. No. You say, what do we do about this? Here's what I actually think is happening. You guys know that I used to work with death penalty inmates, people who killed for fun. I've worked with those people, and they didn't come in and say, hi, I kill for fun because I'm a bad person. It was, my child wouldn't stop screaming, and it's his fault. He's 6 months old now. He should have known that daddy was using 3 different kinds of drugs. And so, yes, I definitely muted my child. He doesn't say that, right? The story is, it's their fault. I was just doing this. This was my feeling. This is how they hurt my feelings. They should have done this. That's the story that I used to get. But the feelings, wait a minute. So what are these feelings? These are wrong feelings. What is broken in you that you're having this data? What is broken in you that you're doing this? What does this mean? Well, it means I should stay the hell away from you because you have that feeling. Even that is useful data. But if somebody else comes to me, Andrey, you're my business partner in a lot of capacities. If you come to me and say, Adam, here is this. Here's how you make me feel when you do this. Here's what this is.
I feel like that's not coming out of
So you watch something and say, when you say that, this is the feeling it inspires in me. So make sure that you do it this other thing, right? You tell me this a lot as a viewer.
I think I use different words.
You might. But I rely on that from you. I rely on that information from you so that I can change and tweak myself in some capacities.
But you also have the skills.
Yes.
People we're referencing do not have those skills.
Oh, absolutely. But we can teach them those skills.
At what cost?
Well, I can send them a receipt, but that's my statement here is to make this sustainable, to make it fully sustainable. There needs to be a next step, a next evolution, right? In the book called The Second Mountain, he talks about the first phase of your life is building that business. It's very much the your feelings kind of feeling. It's grow, it's advance, it's expand. It's what avoidant men do to drive our society forward. We can't survive as a species without that capacity, actually. We stagnate, we fall apart. But the second phase becomes legacy. In the book, he calls it service to others, but it's legacy, it's crafting, it's building relationships, it's sustaining those relationships, it's building long-term sustainability. And for that, you do need to be aware of feelings, not to cater to them because that will kill you. That will kill your child, for example, if you do that and obsess over it. But you're aware of those feelings to properly nurture, to lead, to guide, to grow those relationships and those people, even in business. Even if you're mentoring somebody, you're mentoring your successor, you need to be aware of the feelings so that you can prune, you can grow and nurture. That's what I'm talking about. Do not ever collapse into feelings, but it's useful data. Yeah, that's okay.
He's not convinced. Give me,
that's okay.
Give me a use case.
That's perfectly
Give me
okay.
an MVP.
And look, I'm not knocking it. I just feel like in business, especially now, you got to be shrewd if you want to continue to stay above water. And so you're using the feelings as a gauge. I'll give you that one. But at Andre's point, like at what expense or how much feeling are you going to use in the situation? I get it. You have the intuition, you have that feeling, but Mary's feeling like today and she's got to be coddled. I'm not doing it. Or, Larry comes up and says, I want an extra $20 an hour, or I found this place. Like, there's the door, homeboy. Good luck.
There's a time for sure. And businesses, just like relationships, go through phases. And there's a kind of like a hunt phase, and then there's a build phase. And it goes in many ways back to the ideas that they had during, the prehistoric ages. Once you're on the hunt, there's no room for anything because you all can get eaten really fast. And if you screw up, then somebody's going to die. Might be you, might be the other guy, who nobody knows. Well, now when you come back, you've had a really successful year. If you've come back, you have just got a big investor. You can actually take the time, and you actually do, I'm sure, go around and you meet with every team and you say, hey guys, this was big, good job. Has everybody's bonus? Thank you. Let's talk. How can we improve? And at that point, feelings do matter because they give you that successful data. It also helps you find talent. Right? Because if somebody's full of negative feelings and they go, I absolutely hated that. That was the worst thing ever. You drove me so hard. I missed 2 soccer practices last month. They go, that ain't the place for you, buddy. But if they say, hey, this was really hard. I learned a lot. I'm very grateful that this was a good opportunity for me. I'm not quite satisfied maybe with some of the resources you provide. Training was not really there. So just letting you know. There were a couple of times that you pushed us too hard and you could have done better. And then that's, it is just what it is.
That's
You asked me and they give you this and you judge their character by that. How do you, because that's how you find talent, right? Yeah. At that point, you do find talent and you advance them.
And you do got to put them under some pressure.
Yeah.
Feelings data comes back. Even if you guys don't want to talk about it, even if it makes you kind of nauseous.
But
it doesn't make me nauseous. It's just, I get it. But feeling's not the right word, Andre. There's another word that we're finding.
Intuition.
And it's going to come to us after we get off camera.
So here's what might be happening.
He's going to therapist us.
No. Society moves forward when avoidant men put themselves in that lead dog harness and drag the sled forward. And avoidant guys are going to use different language and value things very, very differently, right? There's that leadership role. There's different roles that need to be played in a variety of contexts. It's very possible that you guys will never agree with me on this, and that's perfectly fine. That's 100% fine. We don't need to even have that capacity because our different roles that we're fulfilling are so vastly separated. I think that, as you said, there's a time and a place to be aware of those feelings and even use them. Measuring your staff burnout, for example, is a really important metric for feelings, right? Their burnout levels. If you're driving and redlining all your staff, that may be one thing that you need to look at. But again, catering to those feelings, absolutely. And we couldn't move forward as a society if you guys like you, business owners, were completely collapsing into feelings. You guys are designed not to do that because everybody else, society would fall apart if you guys did. But there is useful data to be found inside those emotions.
Right.
I will
choose this life. The life chose Brian.
You were made for it. That's my contention there. Is you guys were made for
it. It was that childhood trauma that Bustamante said.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's the attachment pieces. It shapes you to value certain things and understand certain things. But then other people can align behind you and benefit from that as well, so long as you are able to provide those relationship structures to people.
You know why? Because honestly, the reason why the idea of feelings in your definition doesn't work here is because then it's a very unfair and very one-sided structure.
Why?
Because, well, very simple. So, for example, you have an employee, right? And you give them a job and you give them the resources, you give them the time, and they go around. They don't do it. They hurt you, they hurt your family. You skip, your daughter's soccer practice. You're the one who loses money. It is your wife who doesn't get to get something, or, you're not there for her because this asshole decided to around, right? And then you're supposed to now manage those feelings so you can come in and understand what is going on without those feelings. When in reality, you want to punch them in the teeth. Why is it that your feelings don't matter, but everybody else's do?
Why is it that you think your feelings don't matter?
Because they don't care. Have you had employees care about your feelings ever? No, that's not part of the job.
Correct.
Yeah.
But your feelings are still useful data.
Yeah, that I want to punch the guy in the teeth. That's it.
But we're supposed to care about theirs.
Yeah, so it doesn't work like that,
It's a one-sided deal.
Did I say you have to care about their feelings? Wait a minute. Did I say you have to care about them? Or only that you have to be aware of them and note them?
Technically, you got to care a little bit.
No.
I said technically.
Yeah, I think you have to be aware of them. You have to be aware of them so you can manage things effectively. You have to be aware of your own feelings.
So how does
because
one
that's
gain
useful
that
sensory
awareness?
data.
So if you live this life, what was your average workday in length?
Fuck. Like 18 for me.
18 hours. My average workday right now is between 12 and 16 hours, depending on,
Which is still insane.
It's still a lot. I have a kid, I have like other things I got to be doing. I'm not doing them.
And I'm with you.
So,
My average is 14 to 16 right now.
yeah.
It is
So
what it
you're
is.
in the same place.
I am.
So now we have this interesting thing. It's really interesting when you can look at somebody and then you say, well, you need to be doing this better and this better. It's like, watching a football player. Like, if you dodge and then you turn, then you jump and then you do this flip, then you're going to do it. So why don't you do it? It's like, you try. You try going for 14, 16 hours for several years. And then you're just sitting there and you're bleeding out the eyeballs. And the last thing you want is to be here and somebody's whining to them because they had to work an extra hour. You're like, what the fuck? Like, it really, there's a point. There's truly a human point where you cannot process anymore. So how do you overcome that? So if you're saying that every executive, let's say, should have an understanding of feelings, fantastic. Now, let's say we're overworked. You're working a double shift. You're working 6-7 days a week, and you're doing this for months, years, right? And the pressure is on you. There's also the stressors, because you're responsible for the budget. You're responsible for the leads. You're responsible for the sales. Chief cook and, bottle washer is the term. How do you develop a healthy relationship with feelings when your own feelings always get shoved under the table? Because guess what? That hurts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So it's having a life outside of business a little bit. It's having relationships outside that are going to nurture that for you. It's having a partner who actually understands it and is reasonable and isn't eating you alive outside. It's having somebody... And for most men don't understand this, but it's
how's that going for you, man?
Like, Adam, where are you going with this one?
Well, I don't know if either one of you has ever experienced a relationship where she's not eating you alive, but having somebody who's actually nurturing your biochemistry and your neurology outside of that relationship, who's actually working with you instead of working against you, somebody whose feelings aren't a gun to your head where you have to cater to them endlessly, having a partner who's working with you in that capacity. And maybe you guys I can't imagine that right now. I don't know. You're making a face over there, but it's...
He's talking about unicorns.
Yes. I got lucky with mine, but at the end of the day, like, that's truly luck. That is like the statistical improbability to the highest degree, but that doesn't really happen, right? That really doesn't happen. And part of the reason it doesn't happen is because there's such a huge gap, right? The switch. We're coming back to this idea of the emotional switch. So you leave, it's 8 p.m., you have a 7 a.m. meeting. Not that you'd be in one of those, but
I've been in it. I'm there. I'm not there.
I'm just off.
Somebody take notes.
Yep. So let's say you have this situation and you have a couple of hours. And let's say that you're dating somebody or you're married to somebody and you come back and there's actually a release stage, right? So it's not like you leave and all of a sudden like the sun comes out, the butterflies come.
No, the wheels are still spinning.
Yeah, you have momentum carrying through and you're processing, you're analyzing. And how do you deal with that? What advice do you give to people who have that?
Who have that phase where it's hard to make that jump?
Yeah.
Well, it's not even the jump. It's, okay, so you just left this amazing meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And the wheels are spinning. You're creative here, and there, but you're 30 minutes out from the house.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to walk in the door and you know that switch hasn't turned off.
Mm-hmm.
How do you still be present and take care of everybody's needs? Not to the basics, but to a point where everybody's happy.
Yeah, again, it's actually having a spouse. I have that all the time. So my wife and I have a signal. She looks at me and she sees the wheels turning in my head because we've been together for 16 and a half years. And she says, "Are you in work mode?" "Yep, work mode."
Pen comes out.
Yeah, she says, "You in work mode?" I say, "Yep, work mode." She says, "How long do you need?" I say, "Another hour." She says, "Okay, I'll keep the kids off you." And I go to my home office. I do whatever I got to do for an hour. I get it taken care of. I come back out. Now I'm ready to go. I have a wife who actually understands how I function. I've built that marriage. We didn't start out that way. We've built that on purpose to be that way so that she is not a ball and chain around my neck. She's someone who's there to help me augment that. Now, yes, there's a trade. There's a reciprocation. After that hour, I need to come and make sure that I'm properly nurturing her and the family. But it's not gun to the head kind of thing. It's an exchange. It's a clear exchange and transaction that's very clear between the two of us.
So it's like business.
Where we have actual useful data coming in from feelings. Yes. Yeah.
Feelings.
It's an actual functioning human relationship.
Feelings.
See, we had a Ryan Terabin on this a couple months ago, and he talked about in a healthy functioning relationship, it is 100% transactional. It's just that the transactions, you've built the system, so the transactions are invisible if you just don't look too hard. Every relationship is transactional. The more that you're both aware of that, the better things go. But again, the feelings are useful about is the transactional system working properly on both sides? So that's when my wife brings me a feeling, I say, okay, does that mean the transactional system is off somewhere? Are we out of whack? Let me think about that. Is her feeling, what does her feeling mean? Not is it valid or not, but she believes it. Okay. But what does this feeling mean? What is this telling me in our relationship? What's it telling me about our family system? And then same thing with my employees, right? Hey, Adam, here's this feeling. Well, and I think to myself, what does this person's feeling actually mean? What is it actually telling me? Does it mean I have to fire this person pretty soon because they're crazy? Does it mean that maybe there's some validity to what they're saying? They're feeling something on the ground. They're feeling something here. What does this mean? Let me talk about this feeling. Let me think about what this means for my system. And then I might bring them in and say,
Maybe
here's
that's
what
why
I think
you're
you're
working
feeling.
18 hours. You could be working 12 if you just stop thinking about that shit.
Yeah, no, I'm
But see,
pretty
he
happy.
understands feelings like to a whole nother level. You and I, we understand the concept. We understand things around it.
But maybe you guys aren't supposed to.
So then where's the happy medium?
Where is the happy medium? I honestly, I think it's,
How do you blend both worlds? And I already know, Andre and I, at this point in our lives, we're not changing on the business path.
no. And I don't expect, this is not the conversation to make you guys run your businesses like a daycare.
CFO,
That's not going to work
Chief
either.
Feelings Officer.
That's, yeah. You can, so you absolutely can. You can actually bring somebody in who manages the
I like the drill
relationships for
sergeant
you.
idea a lot more.
Yeah, I hear you.
That's better. That actually, I was like, ooh, okay.
But at what
Morale
point
officer.
do you get to a situation where the relationships do matter in a business setting? You talked about the build phase after the hunt phase, right?
Well, yeah, I guess we didn't get to that part. But the build phase is one where you do go check out and you take that information and you craft something to improve the system for everybody who wants to stay on top of it. The ship comes to port and people actually are allowed to leave, right? Even in the Navy, it's not like they guarded the ship. Like, deserters happened all the time. Like half of Australia and North America is from people who didn't want to stay and go back to whatever it is they came from, right? But the idea is that you use that to weed out and you eventually build a better and better tribe, right? And the group of people that support you, right? And it is optimized for your type of people, right? Just like a football team is optimized for football player builds. You're not going to get like the little skinny guy unless he's, I don't know, like a running quarterback or something. Who knows? But every system is supposed to optimize itself for the ideal circumstance under which it performs, right? Mm-hmm. So that's all you do. You just make it a little bit better for the guys who are in line with what you're trying to build. That's why every company has to have a mission and a vision, because otherwise you're wasting time. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm very curious about this, Brian. You know a lot of people who are executives. You know a lot of people who are in business. How many of them actually have good relationships at home?
Are we using him as the baseline?
I don't know. That's going to be a hard one. Let's just say secure attachment. They do not having affairs. They have a functional enough marriage where, as far as we're aware, their partner is happy. And let's say they have 1 or 2 children who seem to like them. And let's say they have a dog that doesn't want to kill them.
Saddest metric I've ever heard.
That's a realistic metric.
Dude.
No, so what a lot of people are facing, but it's still the saddest metric in the world.
So how many people do I know that have that?
Let's just start with that baseline, not his.
Yeah, so there's a baseline. Go ahead.
Out of the executive
At
team.
our level of business?
Yeah.
None.
Yeah. And that's most of my executive clients who come into me are exactly that's.
And that's talking at our level, Andrey. Fuck, even when I was starting. No.
Yeah. And that's where most of my executive clients
that's
come
it.
into me. It's like that.
To your point, it is a baseline.
It's sad.
And we can't even hit that.
I know.
And is it our fault? Is it that we're picking the wrong partner to help grow with us and build with us? What happened in our lives to get to that point where we attract that?
And that's the component there is it's usually a lack of awareness of what else could be. It's not that you guys are wrong. It's not even that what you're saying is wrong. It's not even that your relationships are wrong. It's that there's a whole missing color that you guys have never seen before. It's a missing piece it could be thus, but it was never thus in your environment. You've never seen it. You've never experienced it. And that's the component that creates that sled dog who's going to pull everybody forward, is not knowing that this is there. That's something you strive to hit maybe in your later years, but it's a skill set you have to learn into and be aware that it's even possible.
So we screwed for now. That's it.
Well, I guess back on us, Andrey, like we've killed it in business, and then when we've only learned the personal side after things have blown up.
The second mountain.
And so we're thinking everything status quo, explosion. I'm not saying we're to blame or we are to blame. I'm just saying we don't address that next issue, though, until the grenade's gone off.
And that's true, right?
Because that's how we triage business.
Yeah.
We're going to triage our personal life the same way, and then we're going to go find an Adam or anyone else to try and figure it out, and then you pray your partner's on that same path.
Well, I'm actually a client of Adam's, and he's been working with me for 2.5 years now.
As you can tell, I've made him
3
care about
years.
feelings quite a lot in the last couple of years.
We'll cut this part out.
So,
Well, and we don't have to go into it, but did it take something pivotal in your life
big
to
divorce.
find?
Yeah. So for me, it was a big divorce, right?
And that was your grenade.
that was the grenade, right? And was
But if you wouldn't have had the grenade and everything was functioning kind of up, but it was still functioning, would you have found an Adam?
Unlikely would have actually had the necessity to sit down. Unfortunately, it's probably a little bit of a sensitivity to pain issue, right? In business, there's so much pain involved that people just don't realize, emotional, financial, stress. Stress is very painful. Stress is very, very painful to your face. It hurts right here. It feels like you're just flying into a thing of glass, like just a cloud of shattered glass every day, because you're thinking and analyzing and whatever. You're smiling because you know the feeling. It truly hurts. And then you're just living with that in order to achieve a purpose. Your pain tolerance in every other part of your life goes significantly up. You come back and you're just like, hey, I'm not meeting in front of people who want to sue me or might want to sue me tomorrow. I'm not meeting with people who might steal from me and other stuff. And you just don't realize, and your systems just don't really work quite the same way. Your sensors are all kind of like skewed, and especially with women. Their tolerance to pain is so much lower in that sense. They're so much more emotional. Their bar is like here.
They were tougher than us.
And in some ways, yes. I mean, I don't understand how my girlfriend deals with me, but that's okay. So there must be something for sure. But that initial tolerance to conflict and tolerance to discomfort is very different. I think that's part of the reason that we have a problem, right? There's just no common ground. And also right now, it's way too easy to get a divorce. It's way too easy to go cheat. It's way too easy to do all of this stuff. Even 100 years ago, you couldn't do this.
But even cheating aside and all of that aside, just social media has kind of pivoted people where the grass is greener.
Always.
And, you didn't take this trip. You didn't get this handbag. You didn't buy this fucking designer bag or the FOMO of the party. And it's then with your relationship because you're doing 12-hour days, 15-hour days.
Sure.
You still have your kid to deal with. You still have to work with your kid's mom and blah, 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 and manage a girlfriend. But they don't understand all those moving pieces in the background.
And they don't want to, right?
And we tolerate a lot more shit. If the tables were turned, it wouldn't
work.
It wouldn't work.
It really wouldn't work. And this is part of the issue, right? So here's a predicament. Let's say you live in this circumstance and you come home and to your partner, you tell everything. You tell about the horror shows, whatever. First of all, the majority of your day or night will be spent just bitching and complaining, which will make you weaker. I am 100% convinced that complaining makes you weaker. To your partner, to your friends, saying this and this and this happened.
I want to hear about solutions.
Yeah. Well, it's like you're actually giving words and form to the things that are causing you a problem.
You're manifesting it more.
Correct. Right? So if you do that, your partner looks at you and goes, what the fuck? Right? You were complete spineless whatever. You didn't say this. You could have said that. It stresses them out. They're worried about money with you now. The whole thing collapses. Now they're stressed out and it's over. So option one. On option two, you come back and you don't share and you share maybe partially. And then they just don't know. And then, you're going through your stuff, you're doing your best, they're on Instagram, they're, scrolling, they see some dude who makes it look easy for their Ferrari or whatever, and they go, yeah, of course, this guy's not doing well, and this guy's doing well, and I have a low-quality man, and the next thing you know, this is what happens. Story of probably 85% of entrepreneurs, over and over and over again. How do you deal with that?
Don't look at me.
I don't know, I thought there was like a little...
I'm 2 failed marriages in. And I guess it goes back to the point that I brought to you, Andrey, is we don't tackle the personal life until it becomes fucking code red, like we got to deal with it.
Oh, we can't even imagine there's going to be
because
a
we're
problem.
so focused on, okay, I'm providing the life, kids are in private school, whatever the hell it is, taking the trips, doing this, doing that, making birthdays as special as you can. We feel like we're doing everything in our power. And I understand they have other needs that they feel like aren't being met. But to your point, where's the happy medium?
Mm-hmm. How do you make this?
Because you want to live a certain life. And if you want to live that life, it requires 18-hour days. Now, if you want to go live in an apartment, we don't have to talk about 18-hour days. We don't have to talk about anything crazy. I'll punch a 6-hour day.
That'd be nice.
No fancy cars, no first-class trips, no 5-star resorts. So where do you find that balance of that person understanding this is what they want? That want comes at a cost that they really don't understand.
But it's not even just those things. I'm gonna challenge you on that. It's not just the 5-star resorts. It's also no interesting conversations. It is no intellectually stimulating relationships. It is you at your absolute lowest baseline. Mm-hmm. You're smart because you had to go through shit. And to go through shit, you have to spend the time, right? It's like, if you want your husband to have a 6-pack, you got to let him go to the gym, right? The same thing intellectually. If you want your husband to be interesting, engaging, have all these positive characteristics, be tough, be confident, he has to go do this somewhere, right? And if you don't, then why are you complaining about the fact that your man, there's a fat slob who's playing video games, doesn't go anywhere, and works 4-hour days? It doesn't work like that. Reality works in a way where there's rules and the consequences, just like we're saying. It is very much like a business. And people don't want to accept that because their feelings get in the way.
And look, at the beginning, sometimes things are magical.
Sure.
And they think they can deal with it, but I know how much I'm on my phone. I can only imagine how much you're on your phone.
I actually throw it away. I have a very, very strict protocol and it stresses me the out, but so far seems to be working.
Yeah, I'm not trying that method.
Yeah.
And when my phone goes on Do Not Disturb, I don't care if the president's calling. No calls come through. When I go to sleep, boop, world goes to shit. Don't call me. If I happen to be up at 2 o'clock in the morning because I can't sleep, I'll take a look.
So how do we balance that?
Well, let me ask you guys, why are you guys with women that don't understand what sacrifices are necessary? Why are you guys with women who don't sacrifice?
First of all, we're changing our ways, sir.
First of all, actually, I am not. Which
I
is
know
a
your
big
girlfriend because
difference.
she's fantastic.
Exactly,
And I know she
but that's the
understands
unicorn.
sacrifice.
But that's exactly the
Is
unicorn.
it a
in the
unicorn?
room.
Okay, men at this table who have a loving, understanding woman raise their hand. Okay, so 2 out of 3, right?
I'm in the middle of fucking
I know.
You know what's at stake.
So 2 out of 3 of us at this table magically just randomly got something different. It's possible, but let's talk about this. There are a lot of really bad, broken women out there, and guys are selecting those women. So pick a woman who's going to work with you on that sacrifice. Who has a
Where
deeper
do they
purpose.
breed unicorns, Adam?
Women who are
I'll
looking for a
invest.
deeper purpose, who are
Not
trying
this
to build
country.
something with you. Like my wife, when we got together, it wasn't, hey, let's get together and give each other good feelings till one of us dies. That was absolutely not
What
the
state
basis
did you
of
meet
our
your wife?
relationship. Wisconsin. You want me to take you there? Go shopping?
exactly.
I'll find you someone. I will. We'll dig her up out of the pull her out of the river or something. But no, it's when we got together, it was, this is what I'm trying to build. Can you do this with me? Yes, because that's also what I want to contribute to building. She contributes to building with me.
Okay, that part I get. But what about if you're like us, where we've built something, our marriages went to shit, and we're still, gung ho, killing it? How do you find someone that understands the craziness of our lives?
There needs to be a deeper purpose. Why is she with you? Is it he can give me 5-star resorts and blah, 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 blah? That's awful.
Yeah.
Do not pick a woman like that. Guys at home, do not pick a woman like that ever, because she will wreck your life and you will be at gunpoint for her feelings. So if you
But
pick a woman
social
like that, it's
media
over.
has portrayed it where every dude's got to have a 10.
For weak-willed women who are emotionally broken, yes, they follow along with that and think herd mentality that that's how every dude has to be. 100%.
That's how most dudes are now.
Every dude has a six-pack right now?
No, they just want hot chicks.
Oh, the broken guys with broken attachment want that, yes, too. I mean, we all want an attractive woman, but there are other characteristics we need to be looking at. If you're going to pick a business partner, you don't pick them based on how they make you feel emotionally. You can use that information, but you pick someone who aligns with that vision, who has a deeper purpose, who matches that purpose. You pick a business partner. Do you just randomly pick? If you went out right now and you had to pick a business partner to found a new business, I will tell you that the skills you would use to find that appropriate business partner are the exact same skills you should use to find the woman you're going to marry. Exact same skill set.
I don't know if I should get married for a third time.
Well, I'm just telling you, though, that's the same skill set you would need to get married. Do not get married if you wouldn't start a business with this person. That's the kind of mentality that is absolutely mandatory if you want a functioning family, because that's the person who's going to come knock on your door and say, hey, we're screwing up here. We're getting short here. This is causing a problem, and that's going to wreck our kids down the road. Here's this thing. Here's what I'd like us to do, but what are your thoughts on this? And that's what my wife does with me. If I'm on extended business trips, blah, 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 doing this and this, she comes to me and says, hey, here's what I've been hearing from the kids. Here's this piece. So on your next day off, I need you to schedule at least a half day on this day. I need you to come down and do this. Is this something that you can take care of, or do we need to adjust that? And I say, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for being aware of their feelings. Thank you for bringing this to me. I'm absolutely going to step in here. I'm going to take our daughter on a date because she's feeling lonely without me. I'm going to do this with my son. I'm going to get this and this. I'm going to train him this. I'm going to do this. She is aware of their feelings and brings that data to me. It has to be thus, because we are both building a family. She is not in there like, babe, why are you working so much? I don't like this. Why aren't you with me? This isn't fun. Doing this. Come on. When are you going to take me to this next resort?
She's clearly been living on a farm for a very long
No,
time.
she's not doing that. She is building it with me. Do not get married to somebody who's not going to do that.
And I completely understand that she was there from ground zero.
A little different. A little
We're
different.
already at the peak, and you can still go higher, but it doesn't really change.
You're not at the peak, guys. Don't say that.
Well, meaning
What are you building next?
but I'm saying I've already gone through from ground zero. I'm here. I'm
Sure, but what's next? What are you building next?
a bunch of more.
Because I hope, God willing, you're cool. I hope you're around till you're 95 or 120. What are you building between now and then that a woman could join you on and facilitate? How can she assist you in building that next thing?
Do I want them involved in my day-to-day business?
I don't know, but what are you building that would be useful there?
There's an interesting thing that actually could be an answer to that question. And that is, a woman actually may want to have a particular experience with you, right? And her experience with you can be very disconnected from 5-star hotels and whatnot. They want to go on this journey. They want to be like your ride or die, your companion, your sidekick.
There for the ride.
Yeah. And if that vision of the man they want to be with aligns with who you're trying to build as your own personality as a man, they will see you going through these business challenges. They will see you overcoming these obstacles, and they will get more and more affection from that because they're interested in having that life. So they can envision you at 45, having, I don't know, a speech in front of the Senate. I don't know. They can envision you at 65, publishing like the top world book, and they get that satisfaction, fulfillment out of watching you take those steps. I think that's maybe the only way that you can find somebody in your circumstance who will want to follow along with the blood, the gore, and the crap that comes from doing this type of work.
So am I going to Wisconsin?
Yeah, come on, I'll find you one. But you guys are talking about like a Jackie Kennedy kind of system where she is facilitating his growth, and she's not there for the 5-star resorts. She's there to help augment his success. She's there to fulfill that role. She's there to do those components versus some of the other first ladies we've had.
Where do they breed these exactly now? That's not
I
anywhere
understand. I understand what a lot of guys are saying with that because it's more securely attached women. They're quieter. They're not on social media. They're not out there blasting. They're sure as hell not on Tinder. They're usually out there quiet in their social circles looking for someone to build with. That's where they are. They're not where most men are looking for them. And most guys have no idea where the good women are. Just as much as guys are saying where are the good women are saying where are the good men. But it's quieter, right? You don't hear about those good marriages. You don't hear about those good connections because it's not popular. It doesn't go viral. That's what I'm telling you guys, though, is there's a whole other layer that's invisible to most people because the research shows 2/3 of people are insecurely attached. This is an opportunity for you guys to find that deeper connection, have a better experience than most people have right now. That's the component. For your second half of your life, bro, your first half was only the appetizer. The second half is so much more, and that's what you're building with a woman.
But back to your previous question you asked of, your baseline. Most people stay at that baseline until the day they die.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, but most people settle no matter what happens.
But I'm saying like the business guys. They just keep chugging along. If that's fine, and they just keep going. Like how do you, I guess, and this is an Adam question, how do you change that moving forward with everyone for the business guys that are building a business, starting at a young age, like how do they know and learn these tools when they don't even know about an Adam? And that's the part I'm kind of struggling with in my head of I'm now learning this because I failed at something. Yeah. And every time I failed in business, I want to morph, tweak, and keep growing. And same thing in my personal life. So it's, I have kids, like I have to be around for them. I have to act different. I don't know where that's really taught, and some people don't have the funds to hire you.
So this is the question that's in front of us as a society right now, is because we've lost all of those things, all of those pieces that we're supposed to teach that. We've lost all those components of community, mentorship, religion, whatever your feelings might be on that. It guides you in some of those capacities. That deeper purpose, the deeper legacy, all of those have been removed, and we're in a raw survival state. It's a collapse of a society, but our machines are keeping us going. But we're facing the same conditions as a society that has collapsed that would have died. We're living in the rubble of that, right? You guys are living in the rubble of that and building things for people to be sheltered under. That's really what you guys are looking at. And that's why we have men like you guys. We have to. But there's deeper elements that have been missing, right? There's deeper elements that must come back. Part of it's this right here, having these conversations. It's men hearing that other men have that same feeling. A lot of men don't survive that awareness where they realize something's missing. They hit 50, 55 and say something is deeply missing. But by now, the massive built up cortisol kills them from a heart attack, from a stroke, from cancer, from whatever it is. And they check out and they lose that next 40 years that they could have been building that legacy with. That's ultimately what happens when people have that endless grind. Your body dies and gives out on you just when things are starting to get good. Or they fall and completely collapse, have a midlife crisis. They marry a stripper. She knifes him in the back during sleep, right? Or whatever it is. She obliterates his life because he's aware something's missing, but he doesn't know what it is. This is the conversation really right here that I'm looking for, is there is something deeper and everyone knows it, but they don't know what it is. So that's what's missing.
What I would say is that we need to have a very fundamental and clear understanding of what is health, not just physical health, which we're not bad at, but also spiritual and emotional health.
What are we
does that
optimized for, and how do we get back there?
So we've lost the idea of health. We have nobody who's healthy in our society. The business elites are all fucked up. Entertainment, fucked up. Content creators, even more fucked up. Sports, also fucked up. There's no ideal. There's no role model. And we just have to simply say, look, just as business has rules and laws and consequences, there's also going to be rules and laws and consequences. In order for you to have a successful business, you have to check off these boxes. These things must be present, otherwise you're out of regulation, you're in risk, maybe you're in growth, you're still building, that's okay, but realize you're in high risk state, you're not stable. So you basically, I think, have to have this definition of what a healthy man is supposed to be. And you need to pursue it, right? So if you are working 18-hour days, you have to have an internal dialogue and say, I know I am building this so that I'm going to build this for the next 4 to 6 years. And I know I'm making the sacrifice during this time. I'm not going to go out. I'm not going to f around. I'm not going to get into drugs. I'm not going to do all this stuff. And then as a 6-month year point, I'm going to then go and do something else to develop myself and maximize that health and humanity. And then you switch. So then your next business project, let's say you've built a business, it's giving you good income. Then you switch and you say, now for the next 6 years, I will build a family. And I'll build a family with a woman on the condition that maybe in the next 6 or 10 years, I'm going to go back and I'm going to start pursuing something else. So you basically coach and mentor yourself, slowly filling in on those different aspects.
So this is of the self, and that's fantastic. Great start. But next comes the component of other people outside of you. And that's what a lot of people are missing.
Expect everybody else to fail.
Okay. But if we're living in health, if it's not, okay, Andrey is the only healthy person in the planet, if we start building that health back in, you guys aren't meant to operate in a vacuum like that. It's not supposed to be a collapsed society.
But relationships, right? If you have a functional business, can you imagine how much you can do for people who are actually in earlier stages? Like, for example, if you have $1 million you can spend, you can invest into people. You can give them opportunity. You can give them time. You can give them all of these things. You can give them networks and connections. You will grow that community around you, as people truly do. Right? You will coach them. You will have that capacity. Now, if you just can look at your life, not in the immediate term, not in just thinking about what today's, Andrey or Brian is thinking, but in thinking about what is going to be 10 years from now, Brian thinking, what is it going to be 20 years from now, Andrey going to be wanting and thinking, and you can look ahead, then you can actually start building that chunk by chunk. I see no other way. You yourself are a business, and you must go through your own seasons in life. So we had another guest on just before you, Sathya Sam. He's fantastic. He talks about seasons, and he talks a lot about dependencies. If your business becomes your dependency, you are not only a weak point, but there's a weak point for you. Right? If you're using work addiction and money addiction to cover all of the issues in your personal life, how is this any different from cocaine or alcohol or pornography or whatever it is, right? So you just have to be very bluntly honest and say, who am I? What am I doing? What do I want? And why am I doing what I'm doing? And if you can't answer those 4 questions, you got to keep thinking, maybe talk to a specialist, maybe talk to somebody who's a mentor, right? Because I'm sure if somebody comes and asks you who's like 14, 15, 24, you'll be able to give them that advice.
100%.
But just don't ask.
People don't ask. Like,
Right.
I'm sure both of you get retarded DMs sometimes of, hey, I got a question. Dude, shoot your f***ing shot already. Like, if I'm opening the message, you've already f***ed yourself. And just ask simple questions. Most people are afraid to ask.
Mentorship. Male mentorship is something I absolutely would love to contribute bringing back to society. Where exactly, somebody can be seeing this episode. If you have a f***ing question, ask this guy. Just do it. You got permission, apparently. So just do it. We don't lose anything but sharing. But people are so locked into their guilt, their shame, their ego, their ambition, their lack of confidence. They just sit there and just freaking wallow in self-pity and say, well, why does this come to me? So go find it. Right? So that's the conversation we need to be having, is not about feelings. Sorry, Adam. That is like far down the line. Let's have a first conversation with what you are supposed to be. Because until you can figure out who you're supposed to be, your feelings don't matter. You're nothing. You're just a ball of emotion that is spewing shit everywhere. Once you have an identity and you have a purpose and you're moving towards that purpose, then yes, your feelings will start mattering more and more and more. But there's a baseline. What do you think?
The look on his face is just priceless. No, you're not wrong.
So that's the foundation of these type of conversations. What do you think, Adam?
I think that what you just said right there is that at some point, then yes, people's feelings will matter. At some point, yes, the relationships do matter. At some point, yes, there is that component for it. What you're arguing is that we will never ever get to a moment like that ever with anybody, which is what it sounds like you're arguing.
I'm just saying that I would love to be around people and for more people to be in that understanding.
I'd like to be in a room like this filled with 50 people.
Yes.
All having the same.
So that's exactly what I'm talking about, is getting back to a society that's more securely built like that. That's exactly what we have to do. We have to get into a society where this is more the normal, where this sort of conversational
Then you have the Tates and the other guys out there pounding their chest that are like grabbing everybody's attention, saying, this is what you need to do. This is the type of woman you need to have. And it's how do you counter that in today's times to get the message across and get it heard at that scale?
The same way that you, I think, manage your business partners. You're in charge. If you want to go and, marry that hooker, you go ahead. But I'm putting information out there saying that this is going to happen. And when you're done f***ing around and you're ready for real solutions, this is where you go, right? And I think it's entirely simply awareness and opening the door and saying, go ahead. I cannot ever stop anybody from learning. I respect people's rights to make mistakes. I made plenty of my own. And I've known that there's a number of walls I had to run my head on several times before I realized that it's not, hard enough to break through, and I had to go figure out a way around. So just that, I think, honestly, just the more you talk about it, we've already conquered a lot of stuff in our society that we just don't do, right? And that's good. We're just now at the next stage of evolution where we're just trying to figure out what is the best way for us to survive as humans. Finally, there's a medium like social media where, you guys can have these type of conversations, right? And sure, there's going to be actors like the Tates, and they're trying to offer a different model. Maybe when they got started, they were fully bought into that is working. And now it's not even working for them. Now I think Andrew Tate's talking about getting married or something or other and whatnot.
I think they're currently sitting in jail, but that's a different conversation.
But at least now he's thinking. He's got some time to think. So
no distractions.
That's right. So, he's reflecting. There's an evolution happening, right? And I also respect exactly the people's ability to morph. The biggest thing that really irks me are the people who sit there and wallow in their feelings.
Or the people that just sit there and bitch with zero solutions.
Right. Like what we started this conversation with. That is the trap of feelings. Be very careful talking to people about feelings, especially men, because it's so easy to mislead them. Not to say that you're wrong, but I think you do need to find a new language, Adam, for talking about this stuff, because the language you're using has been stolen from us by therapists, hundreds of thousands of f***ed up therapists who just make men into babies because they themselves are insecure. By the media, by the film industry, by everybody. So you want to talk about something new? Let's talk about something new, but not in the old terms.
That's why I like podcasting as well. Even if I change one person by this interview.
Not bad.
I'll take it.
Yeah, one more. So there you go, guys.
What change would you like people to pull from this interview?
Before the grenade hits, using your spidey senses.
What's your spidey sense?
I'm not using your word, dude.
What is it? What is your word?
That gut feeling.
Intuition.
Feeling, that gut feeling?
Fuck off. No, I shouldn't have used that one.
But what is the word? Because you're actually not wrong, right? That feeling has been stolen from us from an over-therapized culture.
Simply a feeling of a concept that is not feeling related. Honor. Honor is not a feeling. You don't particularly feel honorable. You are either are or you're not, right? It is truly a state of being. So if you are honorable and somebody is going to fuck you up, you have to decide how you're going to respond to that, because it is dishonorable to be a pussy and let them walk over you. But it's also dishonorable for you to go and, knock off somebody's head off if they're not deserving of it. So it is a state. It is not a feeling. And we need to learn what that state is. We need to stay in it. And as we learn how to stay in that state, we're going to get better and worse. You're not going to be in there 100% of the time. But if you can be 99% of the time, that's damn good. Even 80% of the time. So that's what we need to be talking to our men about. It's not talking about them about feelings. Are you honorable or dishonorable? This is the criteria. Once you're in your honorable state, then we can talk about feelings. but not the other way around.
I agree.
Yes.
I actually don't disagree in any way, shape, or form.
So it means you agree, right?
Well,
Waiting for the curveball.
everybody has a responsibility to regulate themselves. Every adult. Every person has a responsibility, whether they're succeeding or failing. Even if most people are failing, everyone has a responsibility to regulate themselves. Everyone has a responsibility to run that internal self-awareness, that sensory data. They have to. Whether you have the capacity to deal with it at the time or not, right? But you do need to be aware of it. And everybody at some point needs to live in relationship with other people, which does mean gathering that sensory data about how the relationship is functioning. That's what I will say to those three pieces. And I say that as a heavy warning to those people who think you never, ever have to live in relation to any other human being ever. I've seen how those lives end. I've seen how those relationships often end. I've seen that regret on their faces. The guys that come into me in their 60s and 70s and say, what have I done? How do I undo this? What do I do? And they've destroyed everything that meant anything to them. And they're looking down the barrel of a gun at that point. I've seen that. I've seen what that looks like to tear apart everything you have built in the first half of your life because of the way you built it. And when you feel that awareness, when you sense it, when you discover it, whatever word you want to use, I've seen what that looks like at the end. So fully regulate. Keep the people around you who regulate. Be aware of what the regulated people are feeling and experiencing. If you can trust them to do that, fantastic. But have that sensory data. Sensory data, fantastic. Let's not use feelings. The sensory data of the health of yourself, the sensory data of the health of the relationship, the sensory data of the health of that individual. That's what those are supposed to be. That's what I'm saying. And I think that everybody has an absolute mandatory responsibility to manage that themselves. It cannot be your guys' responsibility to manage that for somebody.
Got a different question for you. After your hand grenade went off, did your circle change?
Yeah, basically, entirely. It was a burned circle, and it will stay burned forever, most likely. It's impossible to return to a place that does not want you to change, and you can no longer be the person that you left. So that's eventually you have to say, I'm either going to give up on myself, or I'm going to have to give up on everybody else who wants me to be that person. And that's it. And it has to be a very simple conversation. What is this about? Them or me?
So you built a new tribe over the years.
Entirely. New tribe. We started working with Adam, and it was a crazy situation because I was married to Michaela Peterson. I was Jordan Peterson's son-in-law. We built a lot of stuff together. We did a lot of work together. That relationship ended for various different reasons. And then I started working with Adam on the tail end. And then, I actually started my business with my partner 6 months early, specifically for Adam, because I went through about 4 sessions with Adam. And then, it was so good that we just have to turn this into something. And then ever since then, it's been slowly rebuilding myself, then slowly rebuilding the social circle with a lot of sacrifice. And eventually, only now is starting to pay off. But that I am like a business to myself, and I realized it does not come fast. And it had to have a lot of sacrifices of my own conversations, of feelings, and all that stuff, until I could get out of the hole that I was in, psychologically speaking, in my internal world.
Do you know what my favorite conversations as a client? He's been a client, so I'm just gonna rip him apart really quick in a good way. Do you know what my favorite conversations with you as your coach have been?
Which ones?
When you come to me and say, Adam, I'm having this feeling. What does it mean? Because what's fascinating to me is that means you've reached a new step where you can now track more variables and fine-tune yourself and optimize even further into a better life that's going to be healthier and happier for you long term. Adam, I'm having a feeling. What the hell does this mean? I think it means this, this, and this. Why don't you practice this and see if it guides you into this new pathway? And then I call you up a week later and say, how you doing? You know what? That worked. That feeling was useful to me. Here's this. So this whole conversation we've had about feelings not being useful, I know for a fact that they are in your personal life.
In context.
In context.
In context.
Yeah.
But another topic we've kind of danced around is, okay, your significant other needs to be a certain way, but your tribe, your core 3 to 5 people. And like I asked you that question. That circle got burnt and you started a new one. And same for me. Like I learned within a week, like who was in my corner and who wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
And I burnt my own fucking circle down.
You have to.
And I went ghost on social media and just knuckled down and did what I had to do and processed things, and found there was other people in my life that brought new meaning and had me look at things differently, and had to remind me of that time I was crying, and just use that energy positively forward of, dude, don't end up back there.
Mentorship, right? Companionship.
And, you know, sometimes you may have the perfect partner, but the tribe around you may skew your vision.
So in my top 8 that I've had to structure, my top 8 adults that I spend time with, because kids don't count on this, my top 8 adults, 3 of them are priests, 2 Catholics, 1 Anglican. I have a balanced view that way because I have to have that to keep me on that path and keep me aligned to my religious faith, to keep me aligned to the deeper purpose and that meaning. I have to, or I will fall apart. I will do things I don't agree with. I'll do things that destroy me.
That's what works for you.
Yeah, I've had to remove every person from my tribe that was not going to help me align to that deepest connection. I had to restructure it, as you did, as you are, and doing it.
But a lot of people in this process, though, like, have that FOMO of, oh, I'm letting go of Adam, I'm letting go of Andrey, and I'm going to miss him. But people don't realize, like, dude, you just took a 50-yard jump overnight by just letting that baggage go.
Correct.
And it's a scary feeling. I ripped a childhood best friend the other day, and it's been 2-3 weeks, haven't picked up the phone because I'm like, dude, do you ever bring fucking positivity? Like, I'm tired of hearing the nagging. Like, I wasn't in a good place when I split. I don't want to have more negative shit, just fucking pouring gasoline on the fire. Like, yo, you don't want to push me to a point that I don't need to be at. And, you know, known that person 20 years. But sometimes you just got to let go.
100%. Absolutely.
And that's what a lot of people are afraid of now.
But there's something special about that, and that I think is the distinction. You're moving forward. You're building your dream. You might not quite know exactly what it is, but I'm sure deep down you do have an intuition. You do have, you know, that sense of what it's supposed to be, and you're still looking, and you're still looking, you're still looking. Just like with your businesses, I'm sure you had success. I'm sure you've had some failures too, right? Why'd you keep going?
Because my dad told me I was a fuck up and I'd never succeed.
Step into my office, Brian.
That's right. We'll leave you guys for a bit.
No, but that's it. Like, that's it.
And I've accomplished things that most people in business will never fucking do.
Yeah.
And when I hit that goal, I was like, not good enough. Looking back, I'm like, dude, you realize what you did?
And everybody around you has benefited because you chased that down.
But here's the thing, right? Oftentimes the things we object define us even more than the things we associate with. You know, I am not going to be a up. I am not a up. It defines you. It pushes you. It drives you, right? Because it's such a painful pang. Like every time you up, you're like, oh, I'm not going to do that again, right? And it's a very, very important lower boundary. But then there also has to be an upper, you know, endless boundary, the goal towards a true purpose. What do you want to be?
Someone that makes a change.
In what?
People, be that positive influence, that guy that was remembered for, you know, helping people out when I didn't have to help that person. I had dinner with someone the other day, and it's been a couple of years since we've seen each other, and he didn't know about the split, and he's just like, I'm forever grateful for everything you've done. And I didn't have to lend out a hand when I did, and I changed the trajectory of his life.
So why do you do that? What's in it for you?
I wish other people did that for me. And so I'm giving what didn't exist.
Well, then again, are we in the not? Well, I'm not the person who does not help others. So what is the final form?
Still developing that.
Fair, right? And that's part of the search, right? So once you kind of have that ideal and the target, like that is when you find your true identity. And there's, interesting enough, a bunch of older, you know, various religions and whatnot, they had this concept of the true name of things, that everything in life has a name and it's hidden. And if you can find your true name, you have ultimate control over yourself. If you find the true name of somebody else, then you will have ultimate control over them, because that is the word that describes them. That is just perfect. And truly, in a way, that's what we're doing, is trying to find that purpose. But eventually, you have to have the belief that that purpose exists and it can be found for the majority of men, they believe they have no purpose and they simply are trying to play a role that their mother or their teacher or their priest or somebody else has told them they must play. Right? That is a narrative I think we need to break so that people have to look. And you actually have had to look. Maybe it was that disappointment you had with your dad, I don't know, that you said, well, I don't trust you anymore. So I'm going to have to find somebody else to trust. And you've been maybe looking ever since, right? People need to look. Like, people can't be comfortable because as long as you're comfortable, your feelings will keep you trapped. That's why I don't actually object to feelings as themselves. Just to kind of close off that theme, I object to them as if they're the things that will keep you trapped. They will be the chains that keep you bound from finding yourself. That's the problem.
You know, it's last thought here. But for everybody at home who's been listening to this, horrified, all the women at home horrified at these men not caring about feelings. What's absolutely
I don't care
fascinating.
what the women feel. I actually care about what the men actually feel when it comes to this. Because I better feel uncomfortable and upset because that actually means something.
I hear you. So what's fascinating to me is the worse and more unhealthy a society becomes, the more it fosters men like this, right, who dissociate from feelings, pull society forward, and drive as hard as they can, first to survive themselves and then next to help others survive as well. But what's fascinating to me is something that you just said, right? And this is...
Said a lot of shit.
I know you did, but you said something... you said many good things, but one thing just absolutely touched my heart is when everything starts falling apart, men like you are born. Mm-hmm. More men like you are born. More weak men who get weeded out are also born, right? Not to say they're not humans, but I mean, you guys are the ones pulling people forward to survive. Mm-hmm. But what you just said there, right? And you asked, why are you doing that for other people? Mm-hmm. Because I didn't have that. That's the seeds of a healthier society in the future. When we have men like this, everybody at home, when we have men who don't care about feelings, they keep themselves and others alive, and then they lay the seeds for a healthier culture where people can grow up with somebody who does nurture them, with somebody who does grow them forward. So you guys are crafting that future. Whether you care about feelings or not is cool, but you are then laying the seeds for those people so they can grow up stronger, and we can have a society where people have the luxury of growing up in that capacity for healthier men, healthier women, healthier marriages, healthier businesses, everything. That's what I want to point out to people at home is when we talk about avoidant men, it's not avoidant man bad. It's avoidant man building society and then laying the seeds for a healthier society in the future. That's what we need to recognize. So I love that. Thank you for being you.
Thank you, sir. Question though, are we actually avoidant or we just don't want to tolerate bullshit?
Avoidant is the name we give to people who dissociate from the emotional component so that they can do raw survival without getting tangled up in drama and crap. So not putting up with bullshit is exactly what avoidant men would call it. Everyone else labels them because they're different and you stand out. And it's the nail that stands out that gets the hammer, but it is not a bad thing. It's just an adaptation that everybody relies upon, whether we like to acknowledge it or not.
I like it.
And actually, that was an interesting way to finish. A lot of my early conversations with Adam in our coaching were like that, right? It was honestly a good way to just even present this without the bullshit. Like if I imagine if I had this conversation with a therapist, they would like bleed out of the ears.
You'd be banned from the premises.
But that was actually the benefits. I can just say, lay out and say, I'm not putting up with this bullshit. I'm challenging Adam just as much as Adam challenges me.
Oh yeah, and as much as I make faces as I'm doing it, like I keep coming back, and we have great conversations. This is how I grow too.
Yeah. And look, your goal now isn't to keep someone in therapy forever.
No, we can't be.
Get your job done. Get the
correct. That's why I stopped being a therapist. Was my clinics didn't like me because I moved people through so fast.
And most therapists are like, "Oh, tell me about this, tell me about that," and I'm like,
"No, do something about it."
I'm like, dude, I could talk to the mirror if I want to have this conversation. Mm-hmm. And it's like, give me solutions, give me a plan, point to me where I won't use up, but where I'm kind of going the wrong way, and redirect me. And what they want to do in 6, 10, 15, 20 sessions, I'm like, $1,000 an hour. Like, dude, that was an expensive 20 hours.
Yep.
Yeah.
So let me tell you both what a therapist should have told you in 20 years.
Sure.
Don't settle for a woman who makes your life harder. Settle for a woman who is being clear with her transactions with you and offers you more than she gets in return. That's what the kind of woman you should look for. Don't settle for less than that because they are out there.
Wisconsin.
They are out there in Wisconsin. Yes, they are out there in Wisconsin, but do not settle for anything less than that. Not ever again. Neither one of you.
Wise words, sir.
Live by him. Well, guys, that was quite the podcast episode. Brian, you're a cool dude.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I love the conversation, just the dynamic. Honestly, this is what I wish you guys would be doing with your time. Don't sit there, watch football. Don't sit there just, like slack off, play video games and hang out and talk about nonsense. These are the conversations that men need to be having and holding each other to a standard, to accountability. They need to be researching. They need to be moving ahead. They need to be calling each other out on their bullshit. They need to be telling them to forget their feelings and to get back to the workplace, right? This is the type of thing that helps men grow, not the conversations about useless feelings at a stage where they're not using that data for anything, but to simply have a mental masturbation moment, wallow in some self-pity and go back to doing nothing, right? So that is truly what I think will help men over time. Now, what do you think, Adam? Is this a good way to tie off? Would you tell him something different?
Oh, a little bit different. Maybe just a small amount.
Yeah, but we speak layman's terms.
Yeah.
I know. No, I'm loud and clear with you guys. I am.
Okay, before you give the therapist version, though, we've been talking for almost 2 hours.
I know.
We didn't sit here and pick on our previous partners, previous relationships. We're just stating what we want. And people like to sit at a round table, my wife does this person does that. Like,
Yeah. Bitching and complaining.
that's getting you nowhere. It's taking you 10 steps backwards. So it needs to be the constructive dialogue with a solution and pointing you towards, which could be burning your circle and starting fresh if you have those people. And so, in layman's terms, check your circle.
Absolutely. Check your circle, practice good awareness, and understand where you're at and where the people around you are at.
Yep.
That's it.
And follow people like Brian for more awesome advice because you have a great podcast.
Thank you, sir.
I got to say. And where can people find you?
I'm everywhere at Brian Gold, PhD.
Fantastic.
Make
Adam?
life easy.
Yeah.
That
Makes
is
life
easy. I love that. I love your podcast. I love the conversations you're having on there. That's fantastic. I recommend everybody at home go check out Brian's podcast. Check him out on Instagram where I follow you. It's pretty cool over there watching you do all your good stuff.
Been a little quiet, coming back around slowly.
That's okay. That's okay. Sometimes a man's got to go deep before he really reemerges.
Wise words.
Thank you.
Adam, where do we find you?
I am on adamlanesmith.com where I do have my coaching. I have many things about making your feelings useful. I have courses on there if you're being overwhelmed by your feelings, because that is completely robbing yourself of the fullness of joy and giving up your responsibilities to the people around you. So make sure that you are managing your feelings so that they can be useful data instead of poisoning you and poisoning your relationships. I recommend you check me out on adamlanesmith.com.
Fantastic. You can find me at Andrey Korikov on Instagram, and the work we do is at veritascreative.media. That's for working with content creators like Adam. And this has been a great conversation, guys. I would love to hear the comments from the men and from the women, especially if you think that I'm full of shit, you don't like me, by all means, share your feelings in the comments. And then maybe we'll read them. But anyways, thank you very much for listening to I Wish You Knew, and we'll see you in the next one. Checking out.